Hi and welcome back to part 2 of my splitting image tutorial. In part 1 we used the transform selection command to precisely cut an image up into strips. So what we're going to do here now we've got them. Well, in this video we're going to add some effects to the strips. We're going to add a little bit of dynamics by tipping them at a little bit of a cockly angle. We're going to add a little bit of colour to some of the strips. To finish off, we're going to extend the canvas, gives a bit more space, and add a new background image. We're going to convert some text to a smart object and add a filter and one of the blending options. Whew, lots to do. I think we better get on. My name's Ken Fisher and this is LiveLink Training. Now you'll see the image at this point doesn't look much different, as what we've got is actually a duplicate layer on top that has been cut into strips. So it's exactly the same at the moment. So we need to be able to change some of the strips so we can actually see where they are. Now I'm going to click back on layer 1. So I'll just click on layer 1 to activate it. I'll just drag that on a bit more like that. There you go. Now I want to put some effects on. So I'm going to go down to the FX icon, click and hold it down, and I think I'll try a drop shadow. So you can see now, I'll just move this out of the way a little bit, we've got a bit of a drop shadow effect on that first slice, and that's not looking bad. And while I'm here, I'll just leave the default settings and I'll go for a bevel and emboss. Again, default settings look fine. And then I'll try a stroke. Well, this one I think I'd like a white stroke, so I'm going to change the colour and I'm going to change that to white by clicking right at the top of the colour picker here and say OK. And then I'm just going to look and say, do I want a 3 pixel or take it down to 1 pixel? No, maybe that's a bit too little. We'll try 2 pixels. Yeah, I think 2 pixels okay for that. So now I've got a stroke and I've got a beveled emboss effect and I've got a drop shadow, and I'm going to click OK. Now in the layers panel you can see that these effects have been tagged on underneath that layer 1. So we've got a bevel and emboss, we've got a stroke, and we've got a drop shadow. And what I need to do now is copy these effects to each of these other layers. Now to do that I'll just make me layers panel a bit longer so I can see more of it. That looks a bit better. And now the copy function is by means of the Alt key, so I'm going to hold the Alt key down and then I'm going to click on the effects and I'm going to drag it and drop it onto the layer underneath. And you can see I've now duplicated those effects. If you don't use the Alt key you'll just move the effect, which isn't going to do as much good. So now I can drag that one. I'm still keeping my finger on the Alt key and I'll drag that down to 4. I'll let go of the Alt key a bit and then we'll just drag the layer stack up a little bit. There we go, and then I'm holding the Alt key down again and I'm just clicking and dragging to the one underneath. I'll have to go down again, click and drag, and we're nearly done. There we go. Now we've got all the effects on all of our layers. Now step 7, what we need to do is to turn off the background layer because we don't need it now. So I'm going to scroll right down to the bottom and then I'm going to turn off the visibility eye of that bottom layer. You'll not notice anything happen, but now when we move these strips we will be able to see to the background. Now step 8, what I want to do is to move all these layers just a little bit of a cockly angle, a little bit of dynamics. So I'll start with layer 1, so I'll go right up to the top and I'll click on layer 1 and then I'm going to transform, so I can use edit and down to transform, free transform, or I can use the keyboard shortcut Control and T or Command and T if you're on a Mac. Now if the center point, this center rotation point is not there again, what you can do is just click this little point up here, put a tick in there, and it will appear. Now that's the point that I want things to rotate around this time. So I'm just going to move my mouse just outside the transform, and you'll see it'll turn to a little bendy arrow. And then what I'm going to do is just click and drag and just put it at a little bit of a cockly angle, not too much, and then I'll let go of the mouse. And then I can move my mouse inside the transform, and I can just move it up and down a little bit if I need to. So I'll leave that one there. And now I just need to repeat this for all the other layers. So I shall come out of transform, and I can click the tick, and then off I go, repeating this for all the other layers. Right, now we want to extend the background a little bit to give us a little bit of space around the outside and at the top and the bottom. And to do that, we're going to use the crop tool. But what I'll do first is just to zoom this out a little bit, so I've got a bit of space around it. So I'm going to press Control and minus a couple of times, so we zoom out, something like that. And then I'm going to get the crop tool, and I can go over here in the toolbar and I can click on it, or I can accept the keyboard shortcut of C. Whichever way, you'll get the crop handles that come round the outside. And then all I'm going to do is drag it out a little bit that way and drag it out a little bit that way until I get something that's more or less in the center. That's not bad. Maybe in a tiny bit. Ooh, maybe back out a bit more. Yeah, something like that. And then double click to accept it. And there we are. We've cropped our background a little bit bigger. Okay, step 11. Let's add a little colour into the background of this. We can probably try and pick a colour from the image as well to complement it. Now I'm going to use a solid fill adjustment layer. So what I need to be now, I need to be down at the bottom of the layers panel on this bottom layer. And then I'm going to go to my adjustment layers icon, and I'm going to pick solid colour. Now up pops my colour picker, and this is the colour that's selected at the moment. Now if I move outside the colour picker boundary, you'll see that my cursor will change to a little colour picker. So now I can go into the image and I can pick a colour. So if I clicked on that one, it'd change it like that. It's probably a bit too much the same, maybe a little bit darker maybe. Click on that. Not really that keen on that. What about a skin tone? Oh no, that's a bit too pink. I think I'll settle for something in this corner here like that. Yeah, I'm quite liking that. Okay, and then when I've finished, I can click OK. Okay, step 12. Now I'd like to add a little bit of dynamics, or a little bit of edge to the competition. So I'd like to focus the attention on two layers in particular. And I'm going to put them into a group, so it isolates them from the rest of the slices. So I'm going to slide up to the top of my layer stack, and I'm going to click on that top layer, and then I'm going to create a group. And I can do this by going down here. We've got this little icon here, it looks like a little folder, and it's create a new group. So I'm going to click on that, and it's called group 1. I'm happy to leave it at that. And then I need to identify the two layers I want, which I believe to be layer 4 and layer 5. Yep, that's the two. So if I click on one, and I Control or Command click on the other one to select them both, and then I drag them up the stack and go right to the top. Come on, let me go up, and then drop them into that group 1. So there, so I've not got anything that's changed, but now because I've got them both in a group, they're isolated from the rest of the slices. And what I want to do is to transform them, but I'm going to transform them both the same, so they're going in the same direction. So I'll press Ctrl and T, and then all I'll do is just tilt them a little bit and then double click to accept it. And what's happening now is they're actually above every other one of these strips because they're at the top of the stack in this group. Now I'll just click to deselect both of them, and what I'm going to do now is add a little bit of colour. So for that I'm going to use a hue and saturation adjustment layer. So I'll make sure that layer 4 up here at the top is selected, and then I'll go down to my icon at the bottom and I'll select hue and saturation, and then I'll go and select colorize. So I'll just put a little tick in the colorize box, and I'll find a nice red, so I'll take it right down to that end, and then I'll have a saturation of I think about 44, 45, something like that. Now at the moment this hue and saturation layer is inside the group, so it's not actually being constrained by the group. So what you're seeing is everything that's underneath is affected by the red, by the colorization layer. So what I need to do is move this adjustment layer outside of the group. And so if I do that, if I click and drag it and put it above the group and then clip it to the group, so I'm going to hold the Alt key down and use that little clipping mask to create a clipping mask. So what I've got now is that this is only affecting anything that's in the group, and the only thing that's in the group is these two layers, so they get the colorization but nothing else, and I'm quite liking that. Right, step 13, and we're going to add some text. We're going to add a title. Now we're actually active at the top of the stack, so the text is going to go at the top of the stack anyway. That's good. So I'm going to go along and choose my text layer, which is the T for the type tool, horizontal type tool, and then I'm going to click in the image somewhere here, and then I'll type in a title. Don't make him see red. He looks a bit of a character. And I'm going to position it somewhere just off to that side like that. That's okay. And I think we'll change the colour to red. Let's have some red text. Again, we'll go right up to the top in that corner and maybe darken it down a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Okay, and we'll leave it at that, and then we'll accept it. But now I want to add a couple of filters on it. Well, I can't add filters to vectors, so what I've got to do is change this to a smart object. So I'm going to right click on that layer, the text layer, and convert to smart object. And once that's done, I can now add effects to it. So let's add a radial filter blur. So I'm going to go to filter and down to my blurs and down to a radial blur. I'll have it as a zoom. I'll put the quality or the amount up to 100, and then I'll just drop this center point down to somewhere near the bottom, because it's actually near the bottom of the composition. So I'll drop that down to there, something like that, and then I'll click OK, and that's going to blur the text quite a lot. I quite like that. And you can see that if we're looking in the layers panel now, we've got the original layer, but which is now a smart object, because you can see this little doohickey here. But now we've got a mask and we've got a smart filter layer, and tagged on to that is the radial blur. And the great thing about this is that if we get it wrong, then we can go back into the radial blur. It's totally non-destructive and we can change it. But we'll see how that looks to start with. Now, step 14, we're going to change the blending options of the radial blur. And we do this with the other little icon over at this side of the smart filter layer. And if I double click on that, then it'll bring up the blending options. Not the blending options for the layer, but the blending options for the text, or for the effect that we've got on this text. And let's try a couple of different ones. I'll try a screen. That doesn't actually look bad actually. You can still see the text, but you've got a little bit of an edgy blur on it. Let's try an overlay. Actually that's probably a little bit better. Try a soft light, and well, let's try a multiply. No, I think that's probably about the best one. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm happy with that, and so I'm going to click OK. Okay, step 15. Let's finish off by adding a little bit of an edge to that background. It looks a bit bland, and so what I'm going to do is add a gravestone image. So here we've got a gravestone. So I'm going to get my move tool, and I can either go and get it in the toolbar, or I can press the V key on the keyboard. And then I'm going to click and drag it up, just wait a sec, and then drag it back. And here we have it in position. It's a little bit smaller as an image, so I'm going to need to transform it. So I'll Control and T for transform, and just drag it out till it fills the whole space up. That's looking good. And then what I need to do is to drag it to the bottom of the stack. So I'll drag it all the way down, right to the bottom, and just put it underneath the main image. There we go. No, that's not the right place for it, is it? No, because my colour fill adjustment layer is above it. So what I can do, let's try a couple of blend modes on that colour fill adjustment layer then. So we'll go to the colour fill, and then we'll try, let's try a multiply. Well, that's cool, but it's a bit dark. Let's try a screen. No, they're a bit light. What about an overlay? Well, that's looking not bad. That's looking okay. And a soft light, a hard light. I think of all these, let's have a try. I think my overlay, is my one of choice. So I'll click on that to go to overlay. So I'm now blending a little bit, but I think I'd probably like it to be a little bit of a tone rather than the greens. Well, let's try that. Okay, so I'll try clicking back on my layer 10, which is my gravestone, and I'll go to image and adjustments, and I'll try taking it to black and white. And on this one now I can play around with the colours that underlie it. So I'll probably lighten up the yellows a little bit. I know there's some greens in there, and I'll click OK. Not exactly good for me text, is it, down at the bottom? You can't see it much now. So I think what I might do is just fade it a little bit. So I'll go to the opacity, and I'll just drop the opacity of that bottom layer. So I know that I've got a gravestone in there, but it's not compromising the text. Yeah. Yep, no, I think I can live with that. Well, that's it for the splitting image tutorial. Let's just get it full screen. Let's get rid of some of this gubbins here. And then I'll zoom in, Control and plus. And there we go. I think that looks pretty good. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it around with others and leave me a comment under the video on YouTube or under the video at the bottom of the page on my website. And please visit my website, livelinktraining.com, where you'll find loads of other videos. And if you've got a minute, scroll right down to the bottom and then click on the link here, which will subscribe you to my YouTube channel, and it will really help me to build my Photoshop learning community. I'll see you in the very next video. Bye for now.